Shalom, my friend. Loss does not announce itself with sirens or sudden collapse. Loss begins in the quiet moments when what was built stops being maintained. Most people search for why they lost what they had, believing destruction came from outside forces. Torah reveals a different truth. What withdraws was never taken from you. It was released by you through the abandonment of maintenance. Today, we examine the maintenance law, a structural principle that governs how divine blessing operates in the physical world. This is not about building new things. This is about keeping what has already been entrusted to your stewardship. The modern world teaches accumulation and achievement, but remains silent about preservation and maintenance. Men build businesses, then wonder why profits decline when attention shifts elsewhere. Women create beautiful homes, then watch relationships deteriorate when daily nurturing stops. Leaders establish authority, then lose influence when standards become inconsistent. The pattern repeats because few understand that increase does not fail. Maintenance fails first. Let me define maintenance with precision. Maintenance is not repair. Repair responds to damage that has already occurred. Maintenance is not improvement. Improvement seeks to enhance what already functions. Maintenance is not effort in the emotional sense of pushing harder or trying more. Maintenance is the consistent, uncelebrated preservation of order, standards, and responsibility that keeps existing structures intact. When a marriage thrives, maintenance means daily presence, consistent boundaries, and ongoing attention to the quality of interaction. When finances flow abundantly, maintenance means tracking systems, spending discipline, and regular review of where resources go. When health remains strong, maintenance means baseline practices that preserve function rather than pursuing optimization. When authority commands respect, maintenance means upholding the same standards that earned that authority in the first place. The Hebrew understanding reveals that maintenance is not work you do on top of your responsibilities. Maintenance is the continuation of the responsibility that created the blessing in the first place. This distinction matters because most people view maintenance as additional burden rather than essential stewardship. Here is the law that operates whether you acknowledge it or not. God sustains what is maintained. This is not sentimental theology. This is structural reality. Torah demonstrates this through the daily maintenance of the Mishkan. The altar fire was not built once. It was kept burning. The menorah was not lit once. It was trimmed daily. Ashes were removed regularly. Divine presence remained where maintenance continued. This was not emotional. It was structural. The divine presence that brought blessing into your life operates through ongoing partnership with human stewardship. When stewardship continues, divine support continues. When stewardship ceases, divine support gradually withdraws. This withdrawal happens through natural consequences rather than supernatural intervention. A business maintained through consistent attention to cash flow, customer service, and operational standards receives continued prosperity. A business neglected through inattention to these same fundamentals experiences declining results. The same divine principles that created success continue operating, but they require ongoing cooperation from human maintenance to sustain that success. Neglect is not neutral. Modern thinking treats neglect as passive, as simply not doing something. Torah reveals neglect as active abandonment. When you stop maintaining what was entrusted to you, you signal that you no longer value the stewardship role that brought blessing. This signal reaches heaven before it reaches earth. Divine support begins withdrawing before visible consequences appear. Consider what happens in practical terms. A man builds a successful company through years of careful attention to quality, customer relationships, and financial discipline. Success arrives, bringing increased income and recognition. At this point, many assume the business can maintain itself, or that success creates its own momentum. Attention shifts to new ventures, personal interests, or simple complacency. The same practices that built the company gradually decrease. Quality standards relax slightly. Customer service becomes less personal. Financial tracking becomes less precise. For months or even years, momentum carries the business forward. Existing customers remain loyal. Established systems continue functioning. Revenue may even continue growing from previous efforts. But beneath the visible success, the foundation begins shifting. New competitors gain ground through better attention to basics. Customer loyalty starts eroding through small disappointments. Financial inefficiencies accumulate unnoticed. By the time visible decline becomes undeniable, the real damage occurred months earlier when maintenance stopped. The owner searches for external causes, market changes, competitor actions, economic conditions, or employee problems become the explanation. These factors may contribute to difficulties, but they exploit weaknesses that develop through neglect of maintenance rather than creating those weaknesses from nothing. This same pattern operates in every area where blessing manifests. A marriage built through years of mutual respect, consistent communication, and shared responsibility can flourish for decades. But if daily maintenance stops, if presence becomes distracted, if boundaries become inconsistent, if appreciation becomes assumed rather than expressed, the relationship begins withdrawing even while external appearances remain intact. The couple may continue living together, sharing responsibilities, and maintaining social connections, but the intimate bond that made the marriage a source of strength and joy gradually diminishes. Small resentments accumulate. Communication becomes perfunctory. Shared dreams become individual pursuits. By the time serious problems become obvious, the relationship has been operating on residual momentum rather than active maintenance for considerable time. Health provides another clear example. A body maintained through consistent sleep patterns, regular movement, and disciplined eating functions with energy and resilience. But when these maintenance practices stop, when sleep becomes irregular, when physical activity decreases, when eating becomes careless, the body does not immediately break down. For months or years, previous health creates buffer against current neglect, energy levels remain adequate, weight stays manageable, medical tests show acceptable results. But cellular repair slows when sleep becomes insufficient. Metabolic efficiency decreases when movement becomes sedentary. Nutritional balance deteriorates when eating becomes unconscious. The body compensates for these changes by drawing on reserves built during periods of better maintenance. When those reserves exhaust themselves, health problems appear suddenly, even though their development was gradual. The person experiencing health crisis often focuses on recent events or external factors. Stress at work, family pressures, aging, or genetics become the explanation. These elements may influence health outcomes, but they typically accelerate problems that develop through abandonment of basic maintenance rather than creating those problems independently. Spiritual life follows identical principles: connection to divine guidance, peace in decision-making, and clarity about life. Purpose developed through consistent practices of prayer, study, and reflection. When these practices continue, spiritual strength remains available during difficult circumstances. But when maintenance stops, when prayer becomes sporadic, when study becomes casual, when reflection becomes rushed, spiritual connection begins withdrawing. For extended periods, previous spiritual development provides guidance and peace from momentum rather than current connection. Decisions continue reflecting earlier wisdom. Challenges get handled through accumulated spiritual resources. Purpose remains clear from previous revelation, but gradually, decision-making becomes more difficult. Peace becomes more elusive. Purpose becomes less certain. By the time spiritual crisis becomes undeniable, the disconnection began much earlier when daily maintenance ceased. Here is the mercy in this law. Maintenance can resume. The moment stewardship restarts, partnership becomes available again. This is not earned through emotion. It is activated through responsibility. Understanding why God withdraws from unmaintained assignments requires distinguishing between divine punishment and natural consequence. God does not actively destroy what he previously blessed as emotional response to human failure. Divine withdrawal operates as structural reality that honors human choice and natural law. When stewardship demonstrates ongoing partnership with divine purpose, divine support continues flowing through that partnership. When stewardship signals abandonment through neglect, divine support honors that signal by gradually stepping back. This honors human freedom while maintaining cosmic order. God will not force maintenance of assignments that humans choose to abandon. Think of this like electricity flowing through properly maintained wiring. When wiring remains intact, properly connected, and adequately insulated, electrical power flows consistently to provide light and energy. When wiring becomes corroded, connections become loose, or insulation becomes damaged, electrical flow becomes irregular and eventually stops. The power source has not changed, but the delivery system can no longer sustain the connection safely. Divine blessing operates similarly. When human stewardship maintains proper connection through ongoing responsibility, blessing flows consistently to provide abundance and peace. When human stewardship becomes neglected, connections become unreliable, or responsibility becomes compromised. Divine flow becomes irregular and eventually reduces to prevent damage. The divine source has not changed, but the human delivery system can no longer sustain the blessing safely. This is where most people quietly lose what they prayed years to receive. The practical application of maintenance law begins with honest assessment of current stewardship. In finances, maintenance means tracking exactly where money goes, maintaining spending discipline regardless of current abundance, and regularly reviewing whether financial choices align with long-term purposes. This is not about earning more money or making better investments. This is about preserving the systems that allow money to accumulate and flow properly. Many people build wealth through careful budgeting, disciplined saving, and strategic investing. When wealth reaches comfortable levels, budget tracking becomes casual, spending discipline becomes relaxed, and investment reviews become infrequent. The same principles that built wealth continue operating, but without ongoing maintenance, small inefficiencies accumulate into larger problems. Lifestyle inflation occurs gradually. Investment performance goes unmonitored. Financial goals become vague rather than specific. Years later, despite continued high income, net worth has stagnated or declined. The person wonders why wealth building stopped working. The principles never stopped working. The maintenance of those principles stopped working. Restoration requires returning to basics that created original success. often at greater difficulty, because poor habits must be unlearned, while good habits get reestablished. In marriage and family relationships, maintenance means maintaining presence during daily interactions, upholding boundaries that protect family values, and continuing the courtship behaviors that built attraction and respect. This is not about fixing relationship problems or improving communication skills. This is about preserving the relational environment where love and partnership flourish. Couples build strong marriages through consistent attention to each other's needs, regular communication about goals and concerns, and shared commitment to family priorities. When marriage reaches stable maturity, daily attention often shifts to individual pursuits. Communication becomes focused on logistics rather than connection, and family priorities compete with other interests. The love that built the marriage continues existing, but without ongoing maintenance, relational distance gradually increases. Small disappointments accumulate when attention becomes distracted. Intimacy decreases when presence becomes perfunctory. Shared dreams diminish when individual goals become prioritized. The couple may remain committed and functional, but the marriage provides less joy and partnership than it once did. Restoration requires returning to relational practices that created original connection. Often more difficult now because competing priorities and accumulated disappointments must be addressed simultaneously. In health, maintenance means preserving baseline practices that support physical function regardless of current health status. This is not about optimizing performance or preventing specific diseases. This is about maintaining the lifestyle foundation that allows the body to repair and regenerate naturally. People build strong health through consistent sleep schedules, regular physical activity, and disciplined eating habits. When health reaches satisfactory levels, sleep schedules often become irregular to accommodate other priorities. Physical activity becomes sporadic when time gets busy, and eating becomes careless when stress increases. The body continues functioning from previous health reserves, but without ongoing maintenance, cellular repair slows and metabolic efficiency decreases. In authority and leadership, maintenance means upholding the same standards that earned respect, remaining consistent in decision-making processes, and continuing the service mentality that justified receiving authority. This is not about gaining more influence or developing leadership skills. This is about preserving the character foundation that makes authority beneficial rather than destructive. Leaders earn authority through demonstrated competence, consistent character, and genuine service to those they lead. When authority becomes established, the practices that earned respect often become inconsistent. Standards may relax slightly for personal convenience. Decision-making may become less thoughtful when outcomes seem obvious. Service mentality may become replaced by entitlement mindset when position becomes comfortable. Initially, previous reputation maintains influence and established relationships provide continued support. But gradually, credibility erodes through small inconsistencies. Trust decreases through questionable decisions. Loyalty diminishes when service becomes selfish. Eventually, authority becomes challenged or withdrawn, though the leader cannot identify specific failures. Restoration requires returning to character practices that built original authority, often more difficult now because position must be rebuilt while credibility gets reestablished. The Hebrew word for maintenance contains the concept of watching and guarding what has been entrusted. This watching is not anxious monitoring born from fear of loss. This watching is careful stewardship born from recognition that what you have received is greater than what you created alone. Maintenance acknowledges that blessing involves ongoing partnership between human responsibility and divine provision. When maintenance continues properly, divine provision continues flowing through human responsibility. When maintenance stops, divine provision honors human choice by gradually withdrawing rather than forcing continued partnership. This withdrawal protects both divine resources and human freedom while maintaining cosmic order. The cost of restoration after neglect always exceeds the cost of ongoing maintenance. A business relationship maintained through regular communication and consistent service remains productive with minimal effort. A business relationship neglected through poor communication and inconsistent service requires significant effort to rebuild trust and restore productivity, assuming restoration remains possible. A marriage maintained through daily presence and ongoing attention remains strong with natural ease. A marriage neglected through distraction and assumption requires intensive counseling and difficult conversations to rebuild intimacy and restore partnership, assuming both partners remain willing to invest that effort. Health maintained through basic lifestyle practices remains strong with simple consistency. Health neglected through poor habits requires medical intervention and dramatic lifestyle changes to restore function and prevent further deterioration, assuming damage has not become irreversible. Authority maintained through consistent character and ongoing service remains respected with continued trust. Authority neglected through compromised standards and selfish decisions requires proving reliability and rebuilding credibility to restore influence, assuming opportunities for restoration still exist. Maintenance is cheaper than restoration. Neglect always invoices later. The maintenance law operates as divine mercy rather than divine hardship. By withdrawing support from neglected assignments, God prevents greater damage that would result from continued blessing without proper stewardship. Someone unprepared to maintain wealth properly would be harmed by receiving additional wealth. Someone unprepared to maintain marriage properly would be harmed by deeper intimacy. Someone unprepared to maintain health properly would be harmed by increased physical capacity. Someone unprepared to maintain authority properly would be harmed by greater influence. Divine withdrawal protects all parties involved while creating opportunity for restored stewardship. When maintenance resumes, divine support becomes available again. When stewardship demonstrates readiness for blessing, blessing begins flowing again. The law operates consistently in both directions. This understanding transforms how mature people approach responsibility. Instead of seeking additional blessings or new opportunities, wisdom focuses on maintaining current assignments excellently. Instead of wondering why progress has stagnated or why previous success has diminished, wisdom examines where maintenance may have become neglected. The mature person recognizes that everything valuable requires ongoing stewardship. Marriage requires maintenance. Health requires maintenance. Finances require maintenance. Authority requires maintenance. Spiritual connection requires maintenance. Success does not create immunity from this requirement. Success increases the importance of maintenance because there is more to lose through neglect God does not abandon people. He withdraws from unmaintained assignments. Stewardship is proven after success, not before it. What you fail to maintain will eventually require replacement or recovery at higher cost. This is not threat or warning. This is simply how divine blessing operates in partnership with human responsibility. The question facing every person who has received blessing is whether they will continue earning what they have already received through ongoing maintenance, or whether they will assume that past success guarantees future blessing without continued stewardship. Heaven watches this choice and responds accordingly. Your soul is the blueprint. Your life is the construction. Shalom. My friend, now let's build the life God designed for you.